All right, welcome everyone. We have Jake and Alicia dialing in today. The rest of us are in person. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead and take a motion to approve the agenda. From anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Start with reports, and the first up is the budget report.
Maybe take it? Okay. So basically, we got clarification on the additional CARES money coming from the federal government into the state of Idaho and how it will be distributed to school districts. It's approximately $315 per enrolled student from our November 2019 counts, which were 4,066. So that should equate to about 1,280,790, depending on how.
Yeah.
Okay. It is coming into the district. It's being identified as discretionary because it is not a replacement for the 5% holdbacks that were announced last spring, where they gave specific line items for the cuts. This money is coming into the district to be used, and the criteria is that it has to be COVID related, have to be expenses that you would not have had if it hadn't been for the pandemic. It was not budgeted before March 27th, which means that it wasn't included in our 2019-20 budget. And then we have to use it for expenses only from March 1st through December 30th, not the 31st, but 30th. So it's very specific of how and when we need to use this money. So it's really meant to provide a reimbursement or additional funding for our shutdown expenses in the spring, what we had to incur because we shut down rapidly, our reopening, and activity, our reopening planning, things that way, technology required for remote learning. Although we cannot use it to replace salaries or bonuses, we can use it for stipends for overtime or additional time that it's required to prep and learn, to provide remote learning and online learning. So there's some flexibility. Also requirements to maintain the social distancing requirements, if that means substitutes or some additional staffing. The thing that's really important is for us to really recognize that it's one-time money. So, if we make commitments now with it that go past December 30, we need to know how we're going to cover those. So there needs to be conversations. It will really help us reimburse us for all the PPE stuff that we've bought, the fogging machines, the sanitation, all the masks. Even though we've gotten a lot of donations, we've spent a great deal of money on cleaning supplies, things like HVAC modifications for ventilations. They do believe it'll be distributed to us around the first week of October. They're working on that once they get the numbers. And then we will be required to track the expenses or identify through coding so that it can be audited and justified. Not going to be, a ton of requirements other than being able to say, to explain what it was used for. And I know that the MEA would very much like to be part of the conversation. We agreed in our negotiated agreement that we would, as part of the COVID, combine them in conversations. And we also agreed if there were any additional monies that came into the district, we would work with them on that too. So I think what I'm trying to do right now is really gather and identify those expenses that we've had that are specific to COVID, working with maintenance, working with the schools, but then also really sit down and work with a group to identify what the people costs have been and what the options are. And Kate feels about that too. I think we should include them in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We don't aren't required to amend the budget until the end of the year, as far as the state's concerned. We can do that as part of the adoption of the new budget. So we have time to identify and to come back in and reimburse, use that money to reimburse what we've already expended. So it's really is going to assist in taking some of that pressure off, because we've, moved a lot of stuff around to provide for these additional expenses. So
I just think it's gonna be really important that we're super transparent to everybody of what this money went to. And we can really not just have a budget, approve it, but actually to pull it out and be able to talk about it and show it to our patrons. Like, this is what we did, and specifically in response to COVID. And so they know that it's a one-time expense, and we can see that we didn't commit ourselves on the back end to a potential contract that we end up short later, that we can actually show black and white, this is what it was. I think it's gonna be really critical that we share that way. And
the fact that we need to code it and track it that way and be able to provide, I think it just makes it easier for everyone to be able to discuss it and be part of that conversation. So.
Yes.
so if we did something like, if we did a temporary increase on substitution pay, sub pay, could that money be used for a temporary through December? We give a bonus for substitution or something like that. That
Which would be nice, because they're working longer.
Yeah, and I talked to the other business managers in the SIC conference here in the Valley, and they're all struggling with that and the need, and probably be discussing increasing those rates. I compared what we're paying right now to Napa, Valley View, and Caldwell. And on the certified or the teacher side, we're very close. Where we're really shy is what we do with our paras, and they're the ones who really step in and cover a great deal. So I do think that that's a valid way to use the money, especially because we need people to come in and help us with the social distancing. The key is that, we can only use it up to December 30, and then we need to have a plan. I think, in all honesty, as a district, we need to increase our sub-pay anyway on the classified side going forward. So as long as we have that in place in the plan, the additional staffing is that we can additionally cover with this.
What do we pay when they come in for a para? What is the rate?
$58 a day. And most
Yeah, I wouldn't
districts
do
pay
it.
them the same as a teacher. So
I know Valley View, it's the same as,
We're one of very few that has a different schedule.
I'd pay that much not to come in.
and they're the ones that have they have duty and they have all the extra yucky things.
And we've extended our day.
Yes.
So we need to address those.
So you're gonna put the committee together between administrators, or you guys, what are you guys gonna do what's the plan for this budgeting piece?
Yeah, I think probably we would invite administrators and directors in conjunction with the MBA. That's kind of how we have handled a lot of these, and then bring the board back together for a work session.
Okay. So would maybe
Can
one
we-
person,
Sorry, Kirk, just one question. Can any of this money be used to reimburse for transportation? Did we continue to pay transportation contracts even though we weren't transporting kids the end of last year?
We were required to pay 50% of the average. So I think that the question right now is how the state is going to reimburse us on that. So if there was money that we weren't reimbursed already from the state, I would say, yes, we can. And if we are required, or if we find ourselves needing to add some additional transportation right now, then we could use that money for that also.
I know there has been some concern from a couple parents, a couple we got emails from, but a couple reached out to me individually as well, that some of those routes that were cut are causing some problems for them too. So I'm sure they'd appreciate it if we looked at that. But I also know that due to safety concern, like the sidewalks that have been additionally put in and stuff, that kind of limits that, and where it's one-time money, I'm not sure if that would be realistic, but if just maybe put that in your back of mind for conversation piece, or just revisit that transportation piece as well.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the mile and a quarter deal?
Yeah, we have to be careful.
Yeah, and there's a couple just a little bit farther than that, but if I remember right, I think they're all coming from that same general area.
It has to, yeah, anything that's within a mile and a half
Is it a mountain?
by state statute, right? Unless we can provide or show that it's a safety route, that there's a
I
concern.
was gonna say they bus from my house to Purple Sage and I'm a half mile, but there's no sidewalks.
Right, that's different.
So it's, yeah,
And, you have to look at the age of the children too.
Yes.
A little kid can walk, or shouldn't be walking where,
well, they would, but they get in trouble, but it's,
so, but yeah, definitely we can look at transportation as part of this conversation too.
Can maybe we have one or two board members on your little working committee before it comes to the board?
Sure.
I don't know if anybody wants to be part of that, but so we have a little, but
Well, maybe since Alicia was part of the negotiation, that would be helpful, but I think anybody.
if somebody wants to be part of it, the opportunity will be there. Well,
Let me know, and I'll include you.
Yeah, no, I can do it.
Okay.
anything else on,
That's really what I have.
okay,
I did provide you, I printed out the 6
Yes,
pages.
no, it's good.
Ask questions, and I emailed it, Alicia, so you and Jake can have that also, but I mean, it's more general, it's over the whole federal, but it does help you see where some of their thought process is. And just shoot me an email or if you have additional questions. We'll have more sessions. Like I have another call tomorrow with the
well, they keep
business
changing,
managers
I
in the
know.
valley about how they're using it and what they're doing, so I'll just kind of share information when we get it.
all right, the next agenda item is the ISBA resolution number 15. So I included this on the agenda, so most of you haven't been to the ISBA, Idaho State Board Association's yearly conference. Alicia, I was there last year in Coeur d'Alene. So the ISBA, different schools recommend different resolutions that the ISBA will look at, and then we will vote on it as a group. This will be virtual this year. Whether we want the ISBA to work with the legislature on it or not. So schools will submit different resolutions. You should have all got emails from the ISBA on it. There's a lot of there's 15 resolutions on it. And at the end of each resolution, they say whether the ISBA supports that or doesn't support that. It's just doesn't mean. And then when the meeting comes up, we will vote on it as a body, everybody that is there. I pulled this one out because CUNA submitted this one, and we could vote as a board. We don't have to, but we could actually possibly vote to board to add our names on it as well as support. This one was in specific to impact fees. CUNA, like us, were affected by that. So we got 5,000 new more homes coming.
Mhm.
Fire and police can have impact fees. We can't charge impact fees. And the idea is if we had this in the legislation, in the legislature, that we could use impact fees to go into a savings account to build buildings. It couldn't be used anything for like daily operations, but it could go to build buildings, and it would be a starting point to reduce a potential bond that we would have to build buildings. It's not on existing homes, it's for new construction. So if you sold your new home or your home right now, there wasn't an impact fee on that. It would be on the new subdivisions that come in. It wouldn't be stuff that's platted already. If they have their plats done, they're done. It's for new construction. So
It's basically when they go in to apply for their permit.
yep. And so I didn't know if you guys are interested in that. We have an action item. We could vote yes or no, but I don't know if anybody had any questions. So we brought up in the discussion piece. I was involved with it last year. It failed at the state level because people were confused by it. And now they feel that they've had a lot more support, and they're bringing it up again. So the legislature's has talked a little bit about things on their property tax committees on what they're going to do. They haven't committed to this by any means, but if we did vote later, it would be to vote to support or not support adding Middleton's name. So it'd be CUNA/Middleton when it comes up at the state convention and we discuss it. And so I only thought it'd be important for us to talk about it. CUNA's in our neighbor, they're
Mhm.
5A now, but they're basically facing very similar issues as we are, where we're high growth. And I thought maybe it would be good to discuss it, to see what you
That
guys
is
thought.
And just even a little bit more background from Matt Kirk. So this actually, about 3, maybe it's been 4, maybe it was my first convention or my second, I think it was my second one. The legislators come and have an open session where we as board members can ask them questions. And I asked about impact fees and what the government was going to do to help relieve us that couldn't pass bonds and were struggling in these smaller districts to replace existing buildings. And they kind of brushed it off like, well, we're looking at all-day kindergarten right now was kind of the answer I got. And I believe it was the trustee from CUNA that stood up after me and he said, we're going to revisit her question. Let's look at this again. So this has been in the works for a couple of years. And the fact that we're actually getting it to ISBA body to vote on to take to the legislator is huge. And once it gets there, we still have to find sponsors. But like Kirk said, it is picking up movement. But this has been it takes so long. It's been a long time working. And so if we can add our name to this and help put some backing behind it and some names and facts, and it really does help put those personable things behind it. And it has been in the works for years to try and get this to go somewhere.
From my angle, I mean, this is something that every time the bond comes up, this is the biggest question. Like, well, why are we paying for this when there's all these builders coming in? I think would have resounding citizen support. I can't imagine that we wouldn't be able to get our representatives behind this because it just makes sense. I mean, you want to move in, you want to build a house, you roll whatever that impact fee is into your mortgage, and it's not going to be something that's overwhelming. There's no, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to do this to lighten the burden of the, when we go to bond for new buildings, and at least we can start to put some of that stuff to bed, and we can start to look at some of the other issues, as in, how are we spending the money that we're getting from these bonds, and we can address that in a whole different way if those impact fees take some of the burden off of that. That would be so phenomenal.
Asking price, right? You would lower your asking price for the bond, which would help.
Yeah, you'd have a savings
Which would
account.
help.
You start to build a savings account up.
Yeah.
It's not a silver bullet, but it's
No, it's
a
something,
starting point
yes,
where,
something. And then we need them to change legislation that we don't have to have a supermajority vote.
that's like resolution number 8, I think, but I
That's a
doubt
far,
that's not going to
far stretch.
That's dead on arrival if you ask me. But
I would agree.
anyways, it's all right. Well, we can leave that alone there. We'll bring it up back here at the action items at the end of the meeting, unless there's further discussion.
No, I think it's great.
All right, so that will move us into the action item area and guest tickets for volleyball and soccer sports events. Andy, I guess we'll put you on notice.
Sure. Questions?
I guess the question, I wouldn't even I'd make it more of a statement. I think at this point in time, we've had a couple weeks. I think our number of students per participant, per event, whether it be band, volleyball, whatever, needs to be the same, whether we reduce them all or gain them all, but I think it just needs to be, I've heard enough to go, it just needs to be the same across the board.
Yes.
And whatever that number is, we can come up
And
with,
then, maybe an exception to senior night for seniors. Maybe. I don't know if that opens a can of worms,
So
but
I'll give you the numbers. I mean, I looked at it all, had a chance to watch games, just sort of what we said we would do. So we're good with all that. Yeah, I would say we probably need to hold off on the senior night aspect of it right now. When you look at numbers, I think one of the things we would have to do is potentially keep the visitors lower. Right now, they're just sort of 2 per. Because we would need to, for soccer, for example, boys soccer at 2 per kid, and it's not counting the coaches, that would have been 66 individuals there last night, give or take. So there was some more because the coaches each get a couple tickets as well. The bleachers themselves were full in terms of socially distancing. So the bleachers there's no more room, either soccer bleachers, to sit because of social distancing and people sitting where they need to sit. Now, if we increase soccer to 4 per for if it's boys, the boys team, that gets us up to 132, which is doable, but our fans need to be able to bring lawn chairs and sit in places they haven't ever normally sat. We need to be able to use, and there's dotted lines out there, we need to have some of our fans that come be able to sit what would normally be the visitor side, past the bleachers out in the grass, and then wrap all the way around towards the goalie box on our side, just to be able to maintain that social distancing. If not, the issue is going to be they all just clump up together in one spot, and now we'll set the social distancing aspect of it, which we can do. It will just take them getting out of, this is where we've always sat, if that makes sense. So if we go 4 per, doesn't matter girls soccer, boys soccer, what I would ask of our fans coming in is there's just a limited amount of spots in the bleachers because of social distancing. Those areas are already marked. Please bring lawn chairs, blankets, I don't care.
I think they would.
There's plenty of space. They just need to realize some of them are gonna have to say, okay, I will go sit across from, BK's bench area because that's where the space is. And it's the farthest down there, right? It's as far from our concession and ticket areas you can be, but that's where the space is. And they would need to be able to do that. If they would do that, then we could increase it to 4 per. Same with volleyball. The volleyball numbers would go from 80, that's all 3 teams, right? To 144. Not everyone stays from the freshman game to the varsity game.
No,
But
there's plenty of room.
it's the same thing, though. Some of them would need to go sit on the visitor side to make it work.
Or could you just open up the bottom bleachers and then put the teams behind? Because I know fans can't sit behind the team.
Correct. We actually liked how it worked.
I do, except for did we help the lady that had 2 arm braces find the elevator to get upstairs?
Yes, that's all taken care of,
Thank you. That's,
as it is at every game that we have.
no, that's good, because there was a lot going on.
But that did help. And if we limit the opposing team still to 2 tickets, which we can.
Which is fine, I mean, yeah.
But some of our fans would need to sit on the other side, because in the grand scheme of all this, as we talk about this, right, it's the most important thing is that our student athletes continue to have an opportunity to play.
I agree.
And not only right now, but hopefully in the winter and hopefully in the spring. So even if we increase our fans a little bit to make it equal across the board, we're still gonna have to do some other things and ask some things of them as they come into the arena or the fields to help make some of the social distancing aspects of it work, so we can continue to have these seasons take place, which is of the utmost importance, is that our student athletes have an opportunity to keep playing if this is, this extracurricular activity.
Right. Well, people understand the gig. They know what's going on.
Mhm.
So I wholeheartedly believe that by going straight across the board, let's say it's 4, which I am of the opinion we make it 4 people across the board.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what sport it is.
Or band.
Or band,
dance, yeah.
or whatever it is, whatever activity it is, should be a minimum of 4, and that's fine. People are gonna understand, and people are gonna make the necessary arrangements or do things that are outside the norm. We're already outside the norm. Okay, so people are gonna understand that. And I do think that we need to make it equal all the way across the board. I think 4 is fair enough all the way around.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna limit, the visitor side to 2, You know, I'm,
BK could go to 0. We could do
yeah, no,
special BK night.
yeah, but.
No, I think we should still make them pay. No, I'm just kidding.
But people are gonna figure it out, and people are gonna do what they can to be able to participate and make it work.
I would agree. I think our fans have been absolutely great. They've been unbelievable coming in with these things. You know, the plan that we presented to you guys in August that y'all had a chance to read through was the plan at that time where we were at with things. And numbers were still spiking like crazy, you know, so that's what was presented. You know, and things change and you got to evolve as things change a little bit. But I think in the grand scheme of things, as we think students first, is how can we accommodate individuals who want to watch the game, but on the flip side of it, putting students first, they're still gonna have an opportunity for these games.
There's
to
not many of
continue
them.
to take place, but this fall, but hopefully these winter and spring. maybe
Winter
we'll
will
have
be
full
scary.
seasons based on what we're doing right now. So it's, you know, there's that short-term thought, but there's also more importantly, I think the long-term thought of it. So even in football games, with an increase in the game we had against Homedale, so it was 4-2-2. Our side, and I thought our fans did good social distancing. I think our side maybe could have had another 60-ish people to maintain proper social distancing. So it's the same thing, right? We're gonna go from 342 to 500, give or take, at a home game. That's just with band, cheer,
And
and
can you put the band in the end zone, or would you put students in the end zone?
this is without students yet.
Okay.
Band would, I think, stay in the stands. We'd have to ask some of our people who come in, same thing. Please go sit on the other side, just for social distancing reasons. It's like what you're saying, Derek, right? I mean, people are gonna have to adapt as well a little bit to this. But if we get to the point of discussing students at games, you know, that would take us putting some of those things together and what they look like. You know, Valley View High School, for example, allows 60 in, and that's it. And they're below, you know, we're sort of right in the middle right now, if that makes sense. Emmett, Ridgeview, Valley View have less restrictions. Caldwell, Napa, Columbia, BK have tons more than we do.
Well,
For
BK's Ada County, so they
And
have
but
to.
the Napa and Caldwell's are drastically, I mean, our girls played volleyball there last night. It was 2 tickets, but mandatory masks.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so there's some, so we're sort of in the middle of this, based on where we are. But yeah, even with students, it would have to be a limited number, and our thought process with students has been, they bring their own chairs. We set them up in the north end zone with however many.
Yeah.
We feel like that, I think it's only maybe 100 to maintain social distancing.
So what is it?
Would that be a possibility for the homecoming game then?
Yes, because I
To put students in the end zone, or specifically seniors, or is that a conversation,
The
not a
talks that
question?
me and Brian have had about that have been seniors only at this time,
Which is
because it's
okay.
their senior year.
It's okay.
And it is what it is. Some of the other issues we have, you know, one of the things, letting students in, more so than maybe allowing extra adults into the game, is students just always tend to clump together regardless of, so it's, you know, I mean, in some of those events, it's, you know, I would think right now, as much as we want students at all these games, some of our potential issues of, you know, tests coming up in terms of a COVID test or close proximity, and some of these different things potentially could take place, you know, there.
Well, I guess my argument or concern about that is we could either let the kids in on the football field and social distance them because they have their chairs, so we know, like, at least we're attempting that,
Correct.
or they're all gonna sit behind the fence
And
right
not
next to their best friend where we have no control over it, and that's gonna happen regardless, right?
That will happen regardless, even if we let seniors in.
Yes.
I mean, that's gonna happen.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, at least we have control over some of them instead of none of them, right? Like, at least you can encourage more social distancing if they're in end zone and your chair goes here, your chair goes here, your
Oh,
chair
yeah,
goes here.
That would be highly monitored, just like the marching band. Mr. Davis did a great job in the stands for the marching band kids. If you walk up in our stands right now, there's not only placeholders for where we want adults or families to sit, There's also a piece of tape up in the stands, 6 feet apart, where the marching band was. And if you watched the marching band the other night up in the stands, they were all 6 feet apart, which took up more space, but it's what we needed to do. So yeah, it's very manageable at times if it's inside. If we increase soccer or volleyball from 2 to 4 per kid, trust me, I know some of our students are gonna end up on the ticket.
Oh,
list.
yeah.
That's not my, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have 4 people to get in, I don't care who those 4 are. It's a numbers game for us at that point. So it's the same thing as we see kids come in, we just ask them to, you gotta social distance. So
Well,
this
We
is
can
what-
encourage.
And I think the social distance is gonna become more important when we go to Southwest District Health and we say, what's the contact tracing? And who are you closer than 6 feet for over 15 minutes?
Yeah.
You can point and say, nope, we were 6 feet apart. The band sat here.
Yep.
The band still plays. If you jump in a group in the end zone, and as long as we keep that 6 feet, Southwest District Health is going to support us and say they're not in quarantine. So
Correct.
it's
We haven't mandated masks at games, and we've asked people to specifically wear them if they're in line at concessions or the restroom, just because that's where you could be potentially close. Some people wear them in the stands, but we've asked them to do it. I think they have done, for the most part, a really good job of staying socially distanced best they can. I just know in some venues, if we increase in football, I think we'll have to have some of our patrons go to the other side, because we'll limit the visitors that come in to open more space for us. And then specifically in soccer, they'll have to bring chairs, which a lot did last night, but they're gonna have to just get used to spreading out more and around to some different angles than maybe they're used to in watching a soccer game. But it will help us not only get a few more people in, but also maintain that part of it, the social distancing aspect of it.
So my question is I understand we need to social distance. How much do we enforce that? And how much should we enforce that? That's just my question. I know at some point we have liabilities, whatever, but how far do we go to enforce that?
I think so far it's been good. We make PSA announcements. I think people come in
Which is
and do a
good.
really good job with it. We have not yet had a situation like I've seen them have a couple times in the state of Utah, where athletic directors had to stop games, get on the microphone, tell everyone you need to move or we're just going to cancel the game. So we haven't had that yet.
That's extreme.
But they're following their protocols, so in terms of
Yeah.
social distancing.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have everyone sitting right underneath the press box at football, because it's on the 50-yard line, well, we can't. That's why we put
We should
placeholders
sell
up
those
there
seats.
best we can for people to spread out. And if we're doing that, if people are where those
I guess
seat markers are, we're good.
you go to Ridley's and they have the sign out there, please, masks are required to come in the store. People still don't comply. Where do you draw the line about enforcing?
If we just see it get too far.
I mean,
Like I said,
I don't know.
I think our parents and fans have been
I think
extremely
for the most,
respectful.
yes.
So as long as that continues, as long as they are being respectful of it, and we can look and me and Opal, our athletic trainer, we talk about it at all the games. We just look and observe. And if we feel, and every time we've said, wow, we think they're really doing a good job.
They just want to watch their
At the
kids.
game at Homedale, that football game at Homedale, I saw numerous people walking up to the concession stand, putting their mask on, getting their stuff,
Good.
coming out, then they would take it off or going into the restroom and putting it on. So
That's good.
they also understand that, we're
Oh, I
trying
think
to do
so.
the best we can in the midst of all this. And I appreciate them, sitting apart or trying to sit where we have the markers and putting their mask on in those situations. I just think it's going to take more of that from this perspective for us to continue to do our due diligence. So we know, or we can always look back upon it as a school district, a high school, a community, parents, student athletes, et cetera, where we can say, all right, we did our best in the midst of all this for these extracurricular activities to still happen,
Mhm.
or for us to still keep kids in the building. And I think that's all we can do at the end of the day, but that takes all of us being able to put aside whatever our thoughts are on it. Being
Oh, yeah.
Say, this is what's being asked. We're gonna go ahead and do this for the sake of the student, student athletes.
So I'm looking at the Southwest District Health's recommendations, and they've got this 64 square feet of space, these 6-foot intervals or face coverings, especially at the yellow level, which we find ourselves in Middleton. If we were able to, I think we've got enough people in the community that want to support this. Basically, we're in the middle of a dumpster fire here as far as the ability if nobody else has read some of the emails that I've read, we have some need for community. It's a big need. And I'm just wondering if we can gain some of that community back by just saying we can let more people in, but everybody has to wear masks. And I know people are resistant to that, but if it's an either or, it's like, well, what do you want? Because I'm trying as hard as the next guy not to get my medical advice off of Facebook memes. But it's tough to watch all this. I've got kids that are sitting at home trying to frantically call friends who may or may not have an extra ticket to go to something like this. They would love to take part in this, just because they need community. Is it an option to just say, hey, we can let more people in if everybody promises to wear a mask?
Jake, I kind of thought about that too, but I talked to a trustee from the Valley View district yesterday, and masks are mandated at their school. And I said, have you guys had any cases? And he said, yes, a handful. And I said, do you guys still have to quarantine even though you have masks mandated? And he said, yes, that it doesn't matter. So I think that the more important part is the social distancing. It doesn't matter if you have a mask or not.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Because the health district will quarantine you whether you have a mask or not. Only unless you're that social distance 6 feet will they say no. But other than that,
Gotcha.
It doesn't matter if you have a mask. If you're within that 6 feet, you're quarantined. And that's how I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's been my interpretation over the last 24 hours to try and understand what's been going on.
That's correct, Alicia. It doesn't impact how many people have to be quarantined. It's simply within the 6 feet for 15 minutes longer or longer. But I guess on the flip side, we also know that there's research out there saying wearing masks helps mitigate the spread. So it doesn't do anything for us on quarantines, but the hope would be that it did something for us on how many people actually transmitted.
Yeah, I think if we're distancing, I think we met that bar.
Yeah.
And I think those are if you're meeting the distancing bar, then the mask bar kind of goes away. If you look at CDC numbers, stuff like that, liability wise, negligence wise, if we're attempting to distance, then we're good there. So when we get away from distancing, the masks become a larger issue, but.
Yeah, and everything that we've sent out has said, bring masks, wear them if you can, be socially distant. 4 per event is doable, but we also got to think that we've already asked band, choir, orchestra to take a look at our auditorium and to specifically give us a detailed plan in terms of, okay, how do we make a band concert work? How do we make a choir concert work? Because there's no difference between a choir concert and a soccer game in terms of allowing people in. Our auditorium holds 913 people.
Can they do it on the football field?
Or a regular choir concert or a band concert.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first ones will probably be in December, something to say now.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Sell hot chocolate.
So, but even
Choir's not gonna sound too good on the
Even
football.
then-
field.
No, it'll be cold, but, well, it's okay. Yeah, there won't be any, yeah, but,
The acoustic value of the choir.
no, I would agree.
It's the exact same
Yeah.
discussion. So,
It is.
and what we've done is if you've been to if you've had an opportunity to come, or not, but we have, there's hand sanitizing stations out. We communicate it, we talk. I send tons of information out. each week on what's going on and what's taking place and, you know,
Okay, I get it.
expectations. And like I said, I think our parents and fans have been doing an unbelievable job of it. If we go 4 per event, which to me now that does include, you know, if you look at the auditorium, maybe it does include choir, orchestra, and band, so we might have to be creative with how we do some of those to make it work. That standard though of bring a mask, you know, you can't be socially distanced, we're gonna ask you to put it
In the
on.
auditorium,
And
yeah.
we, as admin, as we walk around and we look and observe, you know, we understand if family units sit together, right? And if I know it's a family unit, I'm okay if there's, because they've already been together, right? We're not gonna, the extreme is it's butt to butt to butt to butt to, I mean, there's 50 people sitting this close together. Well, you're not all family. That we have to,
It could be the IUs.
yeah. That we have to figure out.
There's quite a few of them, or the walkers. We could do lots of families out here.
And but as long, and I believe 100% our community will be, and our parents will be, they'll be receptive to, all right, there's a few more people coming in. Now we have to adapt as well and understand they're gonna ask us to potentially sit in some different areas maybe we haven't sat before, but that's okay for the sake of us being able to not only come, but also us being able to protect the opportunity for our student athletes to keep playing.
I think you're
Or
right.
our, you know, our
We just wanna
activities to
be there.
keep performing.
So I would propose, or I would entertain a motion to have 4 per activity while maintaining social distancing.
I'll make the motion that we, for all student activities, that we increase it to 4 tickets per student at whatever the activity is while maintaining social distancing.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second on the floor. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Jake, did you vote? Are you there? You may have lost him, so motion carries 4-0. Our next action item is evaluate our current category level and amend if needed any of our reopening plans. I think we could start with our superintendent.
Yes.
By the way, thanks, Andy, for your
Yes.
Thanks.
input.
So I just wanted to start with a quick update as far as kind of where we're at. This is our regular 2-week check-in period, so our last one was on September 9th. At that meeting, we talked about looking at staffing that would enable us to go back to green to get some of our class sizes lower, and hopefully be able to distance students a little bit better should we get to that point. I wanted to address, I know there's been some discussion out there about, you know, why we started the year not fully staffed, and I just wanted to clear that up because we didn't not start fully staffed. We built an online school in a period of about 45 days, and we used our current staff to be able to staff that online school. We didn't have additional funds because there wasn't additional enrollment, but all of a sudden we had a whole another school that we had to staff with the same number of students. So that's part of why those class sizes and buildings have increased. We thought that would be, go ahead.
And just to be clear, because not every school district did that. In fact, we might be one of the
I think we might be one of the only
exceptions,
ones,
right? Like
right?
we made that
Are we?
decision to divide that, to give that opportunity. So that's not available in all school districts.
Correct, and we have about 450, 460 students in that online school. We felt pretty strongly that those families would maybe decide on a different option if we didn't have something to offer them here, and we didn't want to lose that enrollment either. So when you look at our staffing, we have 4 of our normal teachers that are committed full-time to our online school, but then additionally, we have partial schedules for an additional 14 staff members that teach in that online school to make this all work. part of the reason we have been able to make that work then on the face-to-face side is because we have been in this hybrid model, so it has only allowed half the students to come at one time. So we're not actually seeing class sizes of 40 every day, we're seeing class sizes of 20. So I just wanted to clear that up. It wasn't that we started understaffed. The other thing I would want to clear up is for some of our classified staff, because we're on this hybrid schedule, we did have to furlough some of them simply because we didn't have the work for them. And we are trying to bring those people back first. So after that meeting a couple weeks ago, we went back to the drawing board and looked at schools and what we would need to get those numbers down. Should we come back to face-to-face full capacity? Where we drew the line was that we didn't want to see classrooms at the elementary level exceed 25, and we didn't want to see them at the middle school and high school exceed 32. However, keep in mind, if we bring students back at those numbers, there is not going to be an ability to social distance. So what we have opened to date, we only have one elementary classroom that's currently exceeding that 25. So we've opened that position. And then we needed to open 6 additional positions between the middle school and the high school. So we've opened 2 secondary ELA positions, 1 secondary science position, 2 secondary math positions, and 1 secondary social studies position. So those are all open right now, and we are accepting applications. A quick update on our COVID situation. So as you guys are aware, we have been dealing with cases of COVID in Middleton since mid-March. We've had employees that have had COVID. Months later, they're still not fully recovered. We've had 1 employee that has passed from COVID. Currently, a recent development is that we have some employees and students quarantined at the high school as a result of 1 positive confirmed test and several probable cases. Additionally, we currently have 1 elementary teacher out on quarantine, and her quarantine was set to end tomorrow, and she's not well, so she still won't be rejoining us next week. To date, we have mostly been okay with getting subs in. We've had a couple different issues, but we've been able to problem solve internally and get classes covered, so we're still sitting in a pretty good position sub-wise. This week is kind of what we have been waiting for. It is the 2-week marker from Labor Day and from when we started school. So we knew if we were going to see problems that likely would start to show up this week. I think the only thing that I would, again, bring up is that we are only monitoring zip code 83644, which is about 65% of students and staff. So the 2 teachers that we have out on quarantine right now aren't reflected in those numbers either. We do have quite a few students sitting out right now that we're waiting on, we don't have confirmation on. So we should know more on those later this week.
So what's Southwest District Health said to us these last 24 hours? They, as far as quarantining and the rules, or it's, if I've been exposed, if I get 2 negative tests after 4 days, am I good? Or what's their, is it just black and white 14 days? Is that what they're?
It's pretty black and white for exposure. So that communication goes both ways. We only reach out to Southwest District Health if we have a parent call us and they say, hey, I've had my kid in for testing and they're confirmed positive. If parent fails to ever notify us, we usually get a phone call from Southwest District Health letting us know, but it's not nearly as quick as a parent would have just called and told us. As you can imagine, Southwest is dealing with a lot. So the rule on exposure is if you have been exposed to someone that is a confirmed case or a probable case, meaning they have been exposed and they're now symptomatic, it's a 14-day quarantine from last date of exposure.
And that's Southwest District Health rules.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen, can you clarify or explain to me, are we reporting kids getting sent home sick to Southwest District Health, like runny nose?
No.
Do they call us and say, how many kids did you send home today? I know someone was concerned about releasing data, and my personal opinion is I don't want our district data released to the newspaper or anything else because of due to the size of our district. I worry about those people being able to be identified and their privacy for that. So how, I guess, can you give us some direction on what that looks like as far as when their personal information gets released to the health department, if at all?
Yes, so we've been really intentional with our tracking or lack thereof. We did have a public records request for our numbers based on building, and we intentionally don't keep records that would apply to numbers that specific to a building. We very much deal with each case individually and look at the circumstances. They're not all dealt with the same way. If they're positive, we always work with Southwest District Health to figure out what our follow-up is going to be. And then the answer to your initial question about if we contact them if we've just sent someone home sick, no. We would only contact them if we had sent someone home sick and they had been exposed to someone that was positive, and then they reach out with that family to get the details and advise that family independently of the district.
Thank you.
So if they're asymptomatic, do they still have to do the 14 days? Yeah? Just curious.
So to confirm, right now, logistically, if we were to say, we don't care about what Southwest District has us at, we're going to go back and go full bore, we're not in a position to staff enough to go back safely, is what you're saying.
Well, we have those positions.
Social distance.
We have those positions open now, so we could eventually be staffed to do that. But what I would say is we still won't be staffed at ratio numbers that are going to allow for social distancing in those classrooms.
What if we moved elementary cohort A to AM every day and cohort B to PM every day? So that we at least get elementary kids in to see their teacher every day and put SPED in every day, period. Set them aside.
On the elementary end, that's feasible. I mean, it's the same amount of instructional.
I mean,
that
I've
come
toured and they're doing a great job. They'll have to restructure lunch and how that works, but.
I think the two flaws I see with that, one would be double the transportation.
Yes.
Two would be lack of a good chunk of time taking between cohorts. If we have one coming in the morning.
Well, you could have the
right
kids,
after.
part of their go home, clean up, wipe some stuff down for me. That's an option, but it might alleviate some of that stress on some of those parents. I've had a lot of elementary, and where I live up by Purple Sage, any further north, you can't get internet. Internet's terrible. And it's a nightmare. So that's my concern too, is these kids first of all, they don't have their devices. And then you have kids that are at home and they can't even get online. So that's a concern.
Yeah, I think we could survey the community to see if they think that's a better option. I would think that parents would find that to be a little bit of a logistical nightmare to have to find transportation midday to a daycare facility, but we can sure send something.
But I think it would be better for kids, especially if you have at-risk kids, whatever, they're at least seeing a teacher every day. Teacher can plug them in and then send them home, however you want to do it.
Then I got a midday for.
That's what Caldwell's doing. I like
I
it.
think you're gonna have parents that are gonna do whatever they can to get their kids back in school.
I think you're
So,
right. I
Whether it's
think
mid-day, whether they do it in A and B.
if they go
or
4
however they
hours
do
a
it,
day,
They're going to get their kids in school every day and make the
yes,
necessary adjustments.
yes. And we could we could only use it for half the year for that for the COVID money, but I don't know. Definitely sped needs to be in, I would say sooner than later.
And you're talking K through 5.
I'm talking K through
Yeah.
5. It's not
that's what we
ideal for
initially
middle or
started.
high school, but what do you do?
I was able to tour every school yesterday. I was in every single school in the district except for the academy. And I called and had a good conversation with Glenn this morning. And I just want to say that our teachers and administration have a great attitude. Like they were all very welcoming. The teachers, I mean, they're making lemonade out of lemons. And right now our teachers are doing the hardest part. They're doing everything. They're doing online and in person. It was interesting to watch. At the end of the day, I was at Mill Creek and they spent the last 30, sometimes even 40 minutes of the day packing folders and teaching the kids on what they need to do for the 2 days that they're at school. So it's really impacting their instructional time. They're really not getting 2 full days at school because of all the prep work that's having to go into getting them ready for their days at home to try and get things done there. The same internet conversations that Pam brought up were also brought up at Purple Sage. Heiss, when I talked to them, asked for more gloves. They asked if they could get some more gloves. And also their biggest concern from kindergarten was maybe plexiglass dividers to help just because of seating arrangements there. But I also asked, is Lisa Pennington there with you guys?
Yep.
If she could share with us some preliminary trending data. So our kids have been in school 3 weeks or 6 days, if you want to look at it that way. And nobody's fault, just stating the fact. They've been tested. They've learned how to log onto their computer and hopefully use Google Classroom. So I asked Lisa if she could share some of the preliminary data as to where our kids are scoring right now after not being in school for so long and what kind of ground we need to cover going forward to maybe give an idea on the academic part. So if maybe she can share that with us.
You have anything?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, our testing window really opened.
Can you come closer just so everybody can hear you at home?
Sure,
Come talk in the mic.
I'll say. Our testing window opened really September 8th, but we don't usually test the first couple days of school, so we transitioned in. So we really have been testing for maybe the last 5 to 7 days. And we have our state test at the K3 level, so we do our IRI, which is our reading test. Then we have our iReady reading and math test at our K8. And then we do our math test, which there's 3 of those at our 9-12 levels. And so with that being said, and Alicia and I talked about this yesterday, I'll give you a broad overview. We usually consider a data set once we've tested 95% of students as a complete data set. We're nowhere near that.
Well, I'm sure.
So at some grade levels, we're at 1% tested. At other grade levels, we're maybe at 80% tested. So we need to keep that in mind as we talk about this, because this is not a complete data set, and what you're gonna hear is just based on the kids that have been tested, and there's a lot of kids that have not even been tested, so they're not considered in this data set. So I just wanna throw that caution out there, because I usually and normally would not even share any of this data at this point. So I just wanna start with that, but we can start with the state test, and when we look at our K3 students, we're about 50% tested right now. So about half of our students are tested. Most of our second and third graders are tested, but when you look at our kindergarten and first grade, those are tested, and that's just because it takes more time to get them into those routines and understand a computer test at kindergarten. So it breaks out into 3 levels: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 3 is our most at risk, usually 2 grade levels behind. Tier 2 would be about 1 grade level. Tier 1 would be on or above grade level. Most of them are very consistent with our results last September. So where we've seen a possible increase is really in our yellow. area, which we totally anticipated. We would anticipate an increase in our yellow because of what went on last spring. But we also anticipate that those are the students that are gonna make up that difference the most quickly, because it's really not gonna take a lot for us to get them caught up.
Yeah.
So the one that I would say is most important to look at would be the tier 3, and did we lose a lot of students that are now 2 years behind? And that number has stayed pretty stagnant as far as this test result goes. So we're not seeing students drop drastically to 2 years behind, which is where we have a harder time catching them up. So K3, about similar to what we saw last fall when we tested last September, we have seen some movement from our on-grade level to our yellow, so our tier 1 to tier 2, which we totally anticipated based off last spring, but not, I would actually say, in looking at this, it's less than I anticipated. So on that test. When we look at K8, same thing, same measurement. So we look at tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. We have about 79% of our students tested right now. So once again, just keep that in mind, not a full data set. Same thing. So red is what we call it, would be tier 3, which is 2 grade levels, yellow is 1, green is on or above. We are sitting about where we sat last fall, so very similar. We've seen the same thing as far as movement goes from our green to our yellow, but we have not seen a drastic increase in our red. So what that's telling us when we start seeing these trends as far as K8 goes is, do we need to make up what went on last spring? Yes, we all should have anticipated that. But are we in a terrible spot right now? No, and it's very doable. Even given the situation we're in right now and the instruction we've seen just in the last 9 days has started to close some of that gap based off some of our early tests compared to where we are now. So that's kind of a broad overview for K8. 9-12, less percentage of students tested. That's just because we started those tests last week.
On Friday, right?
Yep. So and keep in mind, we have 3 different tests going on, 3 different grade levels. So we're
And
talking 9 different test results.
And
here.
they were, a lot of times they froze.
Yes.
I've heard that from a lot.
Yeah.
My son
And part
did.
of that is, if we try to run a go-to meeting at the same time as some of these secure platforms,
Oh, yeah.
it's difficult. And so we're learning those things and we're working
Yes,
through it.
oh, totally understandable.
Yeah. So,
Overload.
anywhere from about 59% complete to 86% complete amongst those 9 tests. So more than half of our students,
That's pretty
about
good.
2/3 are complete as far as testing goes. It spits out a little bit differently as far as percentile goes. So we tried to correlate it back, same thing, below, above, on grade level. When we look at the 61st percentile or above, currently we're trending anywhere from 50% to 60% of our students tested have scored there, which is actually a little bit higher than what we've seen in the past.
Good.
So what that tells us is our older students have hung with us, and we had totally anticipated that as far as the transitions that have gone on. Same thing with the academy, we break those out 2 different schools. We actually, Glenn and I had a conversation the other day. We have more students right now scoring at the academy in our yellow and green than we ever have before. But that goes to work that we've done there, and kudos to their staff and for what they've done. And so it's not, like I said, with a broad overview and where we are with the percent of students tested, is it what we expected? Yes. Is it actually a little bit better than what we expected? I would say yes, because we're seeing that we have a lot of kids in that bubble area, but that's exciting because it means we can make movement there. If we were seeing a lot of kids in the red area right now and seeing a larger percentage that dropped to that 2 years or more behind, it'd be a lot more alarming. But we have not seen a drastic increase in that red area. We have seen an increase in our yellow, but comfortable with that increase because I think we can gain momentum to move them.
Good.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
You're good.
So so when I was visiting, one of the areas, if everyone wants to just look at their reopening plan, there's a section, staff, student, parent procedures and protocols for addressing COVID. one of the issues that came reoccurring from all three elementaries consistently was the interpretation of when to send a kid home sick and for what. It can be interpreted lots of different ways, and I feel like we should have our school nurses and a board member and the principals of those schools rewrite or clarify this section as to when a kid goes home and for how long. And the reason being is we've had to have some kids sent home for runny noses or tummy aches, and they're being told they have to be out for 10 days or can't come back until they have a physician's note. And I think that's over the top. I think we're seeing strep throat. There's a 24-hour flu. There's other things. And I think we can, if our nurses can get eyes on them, they know the difference between a green, snotty, sick nose and an allergy runny nose, and a dry, cruddy cough versus just a tickle in their throat because there's smoke in the air cough. And so I think we just need to remember there's other illnesses and maybe let our nurses weigh in on this a little bit to maybe get a better handle on that and to reduce the number of kids who are getting sent home unnecessarily. Definitely if they have a fever, they go home regardless, but there's some of these others, it either needs to be a combination or something. But I guess my takeaway from that is the principals of the elementaries are specifically asking for clarification on that section. The last thing that I just want to hit on is I had a great conversation with Glenn at the academy, and I think if you know about the academy or how it works or what they deal with there, they're different. They're run different, they're structured different, they're integrated very well with the high school, but they're also different than the high school. And as Glenn put it, we're at risk of losing kids who might not have a high school diploma if we continue them on this 2-on, 2-off day. Kids are getting jobs, they're working, they're not coming on their online days, they're not getting their credits done. And that's a very big concern for me, as I'm sure it is for everyone. But those are also typically not the kids who are going to have parents who are going to advocate for their education. I'm not saying that some of them, that they all are that way. That's just a general statement. But I would like to suggest maybe allowing Glenn to work with Kristen and see if they can be able to bring those kids back and social distance them best they can. They can fund their EAs, or they have grants and stuff that they're using for different staffing needs, but I really think the board needs to look at their school as maybe a little different entity and allowing them to bring their kids back sooner rather than later to try and get them graduated and make sure that they get their high school diplomas, just because of the risk that they're at. So those are just the two areas I think that possibly we could address to help things going forward. My personal feeling is everyone is very supportive of whatever the board decides, and they'll make it work. I personally think we should start with kindergarten that first week, in a couple weeks, bring all kindergarten back and see how things go. But I also think that maybe at this point we need to put out a survey to our parents and ask them specifically. Sometimes we just hear the loudest, and the loudest isn't always the majority. And I don't think we've done our due diligence in allowing our staff or our parents to weigh in as to what they feel or what they prefer, or what their concerns are.
So, Kristen, for you and Glenn to work on something separate for the academy, is that you guys could just meet and bring us something if you think there's something that's workable, that's different, that's needed?
Yeah, we can absolutely work on something, and we can bring it back. I would like you guys to have eyes on it.
Yep.
And give approval, because they've
We'd
been,
approve it, yeah, but
Yeah.
but I do agree that the academy is completely a different cat, and
Yes.
and this is the time we don't want those kids to drop off. If we lose them before they're 18,
You never get them back.
and never back. So if you can take a look at that, Glenn, and if you need, pull us in beforehand and bring us back, and then we're back here in 2 weeks to take a look at that, or beforehand if needed. I think that would be, I do agree that that's critical. In the emails I've got, I think there's one statement everybody in this room agrees with, is that being in-person school is the best absolute option for every student. Nobody on the board or the administration thinks that a hybrid or anything else is anywhere near equivalent to face-to-face education. I mean, everybody supports face-to-face education across the board. There's not, so if I'm looking at red flags, it's staffing, right? Can we get staffing to make that work? Maybe we have a better chance at elementaries than we had at the high school. And then the other one I keep looking at is, where does our limited liability slide into negligence? Where do we stay under the limited liability coverage that the legislature's given us, and then we make sure that we don't step into that negligence piece?
That's not social distancing.
Right, that's social distancing, that's masks. After this, I'm gonna get a hold of Southwest District Health to really kind of go through their protocol again to make sure that it's, what else can we do?
Kirk, could we invite Southwest District Health? I think we need to have that conversation as a group and with the public to be able to listen, to clarify, because I think right now it's he said, she said, I called, they called. Not saying that anyone's wrong, but I think to make sure that we all get the same information, and to be able to just have that dialogue with them in an open session for the public as well, I think might be very beneficial. I don't know everyone's thoughts, but that would just be my.
I think it would be transparent.
Absolutely, we'll offer that. And I think we also know the risks. We know the risks to the students are quite small. But we also know that the risk to our staff is greater. 25% of them fall into the compromised or to a state. We've already lost a staff member. And I think surveying our staff, understanding where they are is critical so we don't lose them. But I think we all know the risk of students are we know that's small. How do we make the staff piece work? Is that plexiglass? Is that how do we protect our staff, right? And
I kind
is
of
it
keep them in cohorts.
And is it bringing back K through 5 in waves, slowly, kindergarten first, or is it just turning it loose at a certain time? I don't have the answer, but I'm just.
I would like the community. I think, like I said, the loudest people are the ones that we hear from.
Yeah.
But I like Pam's idea of going half days. I don't know how that would affect our community or transportation, but I almost feel like if we could work out the transportation, and I would want that figured out before we sent out a survey and said it might even be an option to be considered, because I don't want to offer that as a possible option and then say, oh, just kidding.
I actually called AJ today and asked her how long it would take to figure that out, and she said maybe a week. So.
Okay. Well, and then financially,
and financially, she couldn't tell me that, so.
Cost-wise, but even if it's just, bringing kindergarten back and then first grade back, what are the parents' concerns? What are they not concerned about? Maybe our concerns are different than theirs, or maybe, and I just feel like everyone's so far across the board that I have a hard time making a confident decision without actually making an effort to allow them to respond to us and give us some feedback that we can use and help directing our decision.
Well, part of the reason that we were saying that we would wait till today anyways to make changes was that it gave us that window to see how some of these other schools were reacting. And the rumble on the streets is that, I want to say Marsing, but I could be wrong. One of the schools went back kind of fancy free and footloose, and they're shut down in red now. Some of the other schools have gone back. They've mandated masks and are still functioning in that way. So there's a lot of variables here. I don't know the status of the districts around us as far as what each of the districts are doing and how that's. Is there a centralized repository for information on those things? What are their schools at as far as opening plans and how long and that kind of stuff?
Well, demographics make a big difference, and I think school district sizes, like Notice, I think might be easier to manage versus the numbers we have. So,
Jake, I sent the board an email, I think it was the Friday
Yeah.
before last, and the very
You
end of
did.
it, was details on what each of the SIC schools were doing in terms of operation,
And have those changed?
not to my knowledge.
what state it?
But I can't say, I mean, I don't track each one of those daily.
You don't have time to.
What do you got? A couple things going on?
Yeah. Let me sift through the 3 emails that I've got and see if I can find that.
Yeah.
Well, I know Parma's open, New Plymouth's open, but they're all different. You can't, I think you have to find a school district that's comparable to ours in numbers. Wouldn't that be fair?
Yeah, I think that that's fair
I
too,
mean,
but
ours seems
I
Tiny, their demographics are
something that's
completely different
gonna
than
scale,
ours.
right? If you go back with and just say, okay, everybody's piling into classes, don't worry about it.
Yeah, you
We're
can't
gonna
compare us
just
to
make
Culver.
it.
Their demographics are- Sorry, Jake.
Oh, I'm just saying that, you know, regardless of the size, I think you can just look at a smaller community or a larger community and say, we're gonna get the same results at a different ratio, based on our population and stuff. But, you know, if somebody's going back to school and they're not using masks and they start to, I mean, we're already seeing some spread. So I don't know, where that sits. I'm just interested to see the actual, from this date to this date, this school did this and now they're in this.
Well, Caldwell's
stage.
starting back, they're starting back next week and they're starting the K-5 half days. So
Valley View has been in school
a hybrid, yeah,
August 25th, I
Like-
believe.
what I'd like to do.
And they have their K-5 going all day, every day, well, 4 days a week.
4 days and then one's
On
remote
Monday.
Yeah.
with
Their
masks.
masks are mandated. They've had
They
a
still have
handful of
cases.
cases, but they're still operating 4 days a week, K-5 all day, every day.
Yes.
Yep.
And see,
Valley View.
demographics play so much into
Oh, I
it.
think so.
that More than the population can be the same.
I
If you
agree.
have something that's equal population, the demographics can throw all that out of whack. So, but here's a question that I have. So from our last meeting, and the 2 previous meetings, we talked about, okay, our goal is we're taking baby steps. We're starting 1 step at a time. Our goal was to open it up. We're looking at K-5. So at this point, and this was part of the meeting today, to make those decisions on where we're at K-5. Whether it's going to school 4 days a week, or now that's been brought up, going cohort A, cohort B, go AM, PM, or what have you. Are we prepared at this point, if we said, okay, at this certain date, we're going to do this, whether it be half days, whether it be AB, whether it be 4 days a week, are we there?
We need to hire the one elementary teacher, which we have open.
Okay.
But again, when you say, are we there? I mean, that's very much open to interpretation. We're sitting in a situation right now with quarantines. We know we have spread in the schools, so is
Okay.
that a decision we should be making?
No, I agree with you, but at some point, we are going to have this. It's not going
Yeah.
away. So we can't all run and hide. It can't happen. If not, we need to shut it all down. Because if we continue to do that, that's where it's going to go. And I have some personal opinions based on what we're calling a quarantine and what should be quarantined and stuff like that in that sense anyway. I mean, sending a bunch of kids home that don't have symptoms, that may or may not have been exposed, sending them home for 10 days
It's 14.
It's
and-
or 14 days and going and how do you know they were 100% exposed?
Because we track all of them. We
How do-
investigate the teacher, we do
Okay.
it internally, well, then we contact Southwest District Health. Southwest District Health does their own investigation. We compare notes, we look at contact tracing, and we make decisions on who should be quarantined. I don't have the background
Right.
to make these decisions. I don't have
Neither.
the health background. I
Right,
don't have the credentials to say when we should be quarantining people.
right. But see, I think part of the thing we get into, I know we're going to have cases. We have cases now. It's how we deal with those cases and how we work through all this, but we can't just not continue to move forward. It is the thing.
Well, and that's up to the board.
Yeah. And I mean, that's my personal opinion is that we still need to move forward. Yeah, there's going to be hiccups in the road. It's going to happen. But if every time we have a hiccup in the road, we go backwards and shut things down, we'll never move forward. It just gonna make it, people are gonna get more fearful. And part of the problem is I agree with certain situations when there is exposure and stuff like that. But also too, when we look at statistics and everything else within our district.
But you're not looking at statistics within the district. You're looking at statistics for 83644. That does not account for what's in this district.
Okay,
It's hard to look at 83607 though, because 83607 goes clear to Melba, clear to Notice, clear out to New Plymouth. So I don't know how you track that,
But
honestly, because I live in 83607. So, and the demographics are way different in 83607.
07 is like 2.5, we're like.
It's like 25%, yeah,
They're like,
right now.
right now they're like
Actually, no, I
2.5.
think they're
I just looked at them, I think it was 2.4, 2.5, we're.
Okay,
But without even looking at the numbers, like the red flag that came out of us in this last isolation piece in the last 24 hours, we had students within 6 feet of a teacher over 15 minutes.
yes.
That needs to change.
Yeah,
Get the hell away from a teacher for 6 feet, so you're not within a teacher with 6 feet, so you don't
or
infect.
teacher, tell them to
everybody.
get back.
And it's I won't say it's a game, but it is a game, because you've got to say, how do I reduce the chance for spread distance? So don't have 20 kids within one teacher within 6 feet for 15
Every
minutes.
class period.
Move them around to where you're limiting
That's why we have a
exposure.
problem.
100% agree.
And
But
be
if
aware.
you bring everybody back full capacity, you don't have the ability to do that.
Which I don't want to do. I would like to see the elementary cohort go A and
Well, we're
B.
talking about bringing K-5 back full.
well, no, I didn't say that.
You said
I
either
said
or. You
either
said either
or.
or.
I was asking in the
What
general,
works?
are we prepared to go forward with staffing, with what we have, to do one or the other, or whatever that may be, a hybrid model, the AB, half days, whatever it is, or the 4 days a week. I said, I didn't say
Yeah,
you had to go 4 days a week.
I don't think the half days would change staffing. I mean, the more.
I think the half days might be, I think you could do that sooner and then see how that goes. And keep preparing for green.
I would like us
But
to read on the.
Right now, we're logistically short at least one teacher that
green.
we don't have in a candidate pool right now. So that makes it a little bit difficult for us to consider that.
For green,
Yeah.
for green, not for cohort A, cohort B, we'd be fine.
We do need to.
But also-
Probably need some aids.
And maybe ask.
When I was up at.
And we,
Hang on,
Mark did
one,
say-
go ahead.
Mark did say he had a potential candidate for that position when I talked to him yesterday, when I was up there in his office, for that second grade position.
Yeah, that's correct. I think we have 3 that we were able to verify because that pool's been open since early August.
So can we not have a teacher, for lack of better words, in a 6-foot plexiglass bubble?
and some of them have tape around their desk, because I've gone and toured and seen, and some teachers have made their own
I'm not
barriers.
worried about the kids being socially distanced if the teacher can be socially distanced.
Yes, well, we need to protect.
I guess I'm more concerned about the teacher being socially distanced. Although if you have spread, you have spread, so you're back to the same
Yeah.
nightmare.
Well, and I think you have to get away from the idea that a teacher stands at a podium and teaches.
Well, no, I said-
Yeah, it's not effective.
That's not how we teach.
No, that's not effective.
But it's,
Well, there's certainly some concern through email that we've seen come through where parents are concerned that the administrators, the teachers, the people in the school aren't wearing masks. And that's really, I don't know that has to do exactly with what we're talking about now. Maybe that's just a staffing thing where you've got to go in as an administration and put a little more lean on teachers wearing them. But I think it's, we've got a great example of why ignoring that doesn't work.
Did he have a mask on?
He did have a mask on, from what I understand, and it doesn't affect like we asked earlier with Kristen, it doesn't matter if you have a mask on or not. If you're within that 6 feet, you're
That's
quarantined. Whether both people have a mask, one person has a mask, or neither have a mask.
So what about special ed? If we tried to put special ed full-time?
I'm
So-
gonna let, we have Charlie here.
Yeah, so Charlotte, she, in your email, you opened my eyes up to a lot of legal stuff for sped kids that the plans that have to be written and kind of that. I thought we could just bring them all back pretty easy.
So I would ask Pam, are you talking sped K-12 or sped K-5?
K-12,
Okay, so I would be short 11
okay,
staff members. We've had the position for para. So what happened was I did furlough 3. I've since brought one of those back half-time. I could probably bring 2 of them back full-time if K-5 was in school. But if K-5 was half-time, then they would stay half-time. So it's really very dependent on what we do district-wide, right? I additionally didn't hire in the vacancies that we had come open. So that's why we're so short,
mm-hmm,
and that I really piecemealed the current staff that we had, and I have staff working in between buildings even to cover our needs so that I kept them whole for their benefits and their pay. So I would be 9 paras short and 2 BI pros short. We have had a para position open since July. We have 0 applicants. We advertised on Facebook and last week through our Middleton
I
page.
saw that.
We also sent a mass information email out to all of our community as well. So K-5 sped, I would be short 3, 1.5 at Purple Sage and 1.5 at Heights. Mill Creek, I would be okay. I believe in the K-5 sped classes, you do have the ability to provide an additional social distance because those are smaller. My concern though would be that most of our special ed students in K-5 spend a majority of their day pushed out into the general ed classroom. So if we had all sped students returning, but we didn't have all second grade returning, we're now mixing cohorts when we push our sped students
Could
out
they
to
just
get
go
their
out in
general
the
services.
cohort they've gone before, so they spend their time in the general population? If they were cohort A, they go in the morning, and then the afternoon, they're back in the sped room.
We still have to service them
Mm-hmm,
for their service minutes in the general ed classroom. So
okay,
we would have to figure out how that would work. My concern would come specifically when you talk about the extended resource classrooms at the secondary level. Those classrooms are half the size, if not smaller, than a general ed classroom. And they have typically anywhere from, well, they usually have 5 to 6 extra adults also in the room. So you would be putting 20 to 25 people in a conference room, basically. So there would be no opportunity for social distancing. So with community tracing, if one of those students were to become sick, you would essentially shut down the entire program for 14
are there
days.
other rooms available to use?
The issue comes into bathrooms.
Okay,
So there's a lot of logistical issues when you talk about sped.
I got you.
So I'll just take the first day of school, I did go to the high school to see, how my classes looked. And one of my extended resource classroom, I immediately panicked because of the sheer number of people that were in the room. And it was because we had additional peer mentors, which we are thrilled to have, right? We want
Mhm.
our peers, but we had to limit the number that we could have in there just because it wasn't a safe environment. I want my students more than anybody to be there full time. I can tell you that for related services, PT, SLP, we're trying to bring them in on their off days currently or service them via teletherapy, so we're not pulling them from any of their academic time. We've had good success. I did say in my email, you know, our SLPs have worked really hard to put together those schedules with families. And then to remember that our SPED students are also.
So time out, so let me clarify that. So what you're saying on the 2 days that they're not in school, you're scheduling,
OT and SLP.
which means,
So occupational therapy and speech language therapy.
okay,
We're scheduling that by appointment or teletherapy if families are able to work with us, so that we're not pulling them from their academic time while they're with us face to face.
okay, so
We
you're,
believe that's such important time, right?
How is that going?
So the services started at the end of last week, and we've had great success, especially with our elementary families specifically, scheduling those appointments. Like you said, they're gonna do what they can to get their kids in as much as they can, but we're able to not, so when we do it, we meet them at the door, we take them straight to the room. We don't have any other students from the other cohort in there. So we are able to maintain the distance in the cohort piece. And then offering teletherapy, we've been able to use some of the CARES dollars to buy a teletherapy platform for our SLPs that's very specific to the needs of an SLP. And then I would just remind us all that our SPED population sometimes is our most also health impaired. And we have, our SPED population is about 10% of our total student body population. But when you look at the online school, they're 16%. So families have made some decisions based on the health impairment of their kids. I don't want to see my entire programs get shut down because of the spacing issues. And then we lose a teacher and all of our students for 14 days. The other piece that I think is really important, you know, that we need to keep in mind is that sometimes we're lucky when we get substitute teachers for a second grade classroom, you know, that we can find a certified person. But no matter what, we have that team of second grade teachers that's there to help that substitute through the day. When we lose a SPED teacher, it's much more severe because their caseloads, you know, they're responsible for all of their IEPs, their deadlines. If they're out truly for 14 days, we're missing state and federal deadlines on compliance with IEPs and eligibilities. We are currently behind because of COVID and the spring. So my school psych currently has 37 consents for testing sitting on her desk, which is outrageous for the beginning of the year. So if I lose, you know, a related service provider like her, then we're really in trouble. We're not going to be able to fill any of those positions if we lose them. So then we're going to be outside the confines of the law on how to provide the services to our students.
Well, maybe that's a survey we put out to parents and see how they feel about it, and then we make do. If special ed parents want their kids here every day, then.
And I don't know if you guys were able to see the classrooms that I'm specifically talking about. I'm happy.
I toured Heights and I toured Purple Sage, and I just saw the middle school today. So
It'd be
looks
high
like
school that's most.
probably the high school would be I haven't been to the high school, so, but everyone seemed to have room
So
and
staff,
make it work.
and then staff is the big issue.
Yes.
I received an email from another school district yesterday through our listserv for SPED directors. They're looking for paras, and 4 other school districts jumped on and said, none of us are able to find them right now. It's devastating.
so I guess I didn't realize that you were reaching out and filling a gap on non-school days. So they have their online school, but the occupational therapy, speech therapy, I mean, we're making that reach right now for 4 days a week.
Additionally, so like I secured a paras. I took a para at the high school completely out of the program. And so she's setting appointments to service all of our SPED students every day via teletherapy. So she's setting up appointments with GoToMeeting just to make sure that we're touching base with all of our SPED students each day, helping them. This is our extended and our transition program. And then our high school and our middle school SPED teachers and their paras every day have schedules built in where they touch base with both our online only and our virtual cohort students, as well as our elementaries. So my expectation for my staff has been every sped student getting access to their teacher every day, 4 days a week. And then we're also doing some touch-ins on those Fridays, even though we've met their service minutes prior to that day, based on the 4-day week.
What kind of parent feedback have you gotten?
I've received email from 2 parents that have been vocal about getting their students in 4 days a week. Those are the only parents I've talked to. I think that when, if I look at the data from the spring and emails I received from parents, they were very, very appreciative of how much effort went into work from our paras and our teachers to make sure that our students were getting that face-to-face daily time. But it does take the paras to do that. And, you know, we were able to keep them whole in the spring because we utilized them specifically for that. Obviously, in person is much better, but I want it to be safe as well. And our SPED students sometimes are also the ones that have the hardest time wearing masks.
Oh, yeah.
It just seems to me as an overview, we got the academy, we gotta take a look at a little bit differently.
Mhm.
We gotta take a look at SPED. It's kind of like we got it seems like we got a split K through 5 versus the other.
Mhm. Probably.
You've addressed, you fill the gap, so we're touching bases at least 4 or 5 days a week. We're lacking staffing there. I don't know how comfortable, I don't know what's the chance of hiring anybody.
We need to raise the
So it
pay.
kind of boils back to K-5 is probably our focal point.
Mhm.
Those kids are unlikely to be sick. They're more likely to be asymptomatic. The numbers nationwide on that K through 5 is very good,
Yes.
right low.
Yes.
We have to understand we have to protect staff, and I think that really needs to be our next. What Derek says, taking steps forward. I think high school
Thanks, Sean.
is what it is. I think our focus is K through 5, what that looks like. But I also think one thing we really need to focus going forward is we got a pretty dang good plan in place right now. But where are the gaps there? Where do we help? Where do we reach out for kids that are throwing their hands in the air like, I'm stuck on the internet or I'm stuck in here? I think our plan is pretty decent, but where can we help in this plan we have? Where can we give resources in the existence 2 on 2 off, and at the same time focus on a next step forward to K through 5? Where can we give resources on that off day, and what's our next step on K-5? What makes sense for our staff? What makes sense for the parents? Do they want to look at a split busing? How would that go? Or do we want to, at some date, phase in K1, K thing, or we just go all in with K-5 and we can get hiring? I think, to me, that's the
Mhm.
pinch point.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
I would like to know, Lisa, your thoughts on the K through 5.
On whether,
4-day or the A and B, like Pam was saying, half and half, AM, PM, that sort of thing.
I can speak to the data on AM, I'm gonna closer so they can hear my phone. On AM, PM, with what we've done with kindergarten, our results are always lower if we go half day compared to full day. And we don't see the amount of growth in those students. And the reason for that is because we can't provide a lengthy amount of true instructional time in a half day and still provide meals, specials, and the things that kids really want to be to school for, right? You don't want to eliminate specials. So the half day piece concerns me on the instructional end because I think right now we're holding our own with our test data. We're in a spot where I feel like we can make movement. If we go to half day, I am concerned that we will start seeing us digressing because we don't have that length of instructional time. I'm with everybody We all want everything to be normal again. Ideally, we want these kids in school 4 days a week, 8.5 hours a day, doing everything we want them to do. That's not the reality of the world. No matter what we do, we can't magically make it go away. So what would be best for our students if we need to stay in a model, whether it's cohort A, cohort B, if we want to stay in a cohort model, I firmly believe, and we did a lot of research this summer in preparing the plan we have in place, which is why we stayed with what we're at right now instead of with the half day. We looked at it. We looked at districts that were gonna do it. We looked at what the logistics look like. We would lose instructional time because we have to provide both of those cohorts lunches. So when we start bringing them half day, we have to provide lunch, which is easily 30 minutes to an hour that you're gonna lose. So assume you're in for 4 hours.
Can we send a sack lunch home with them?
You're talking a lot of logistics that, yes, those things take time and we can figure out what works within the funding we have. I'm gonna focus on the instructional time because I think whatever we do, if we want students to continue to grow and we wanna continue to educate students, that needs to be our focus. So I understand all of the concerns. I get it all. Our job is to educate these students. So you eliminate that hour for lunch. Do we want specials built in? You eliminate an hour for specials. We're now down to 2 hours of instructional time at an elementary, realistically, and that's if we don't offer recess. So do you have to have a morning recess? Depending on the grade level, I would say you should because their scores would increase then as well. So maybe you're at an hour 45 and you need to teach math, English, social studies, science, health. You have 5 subjects to teach in an hour and 45 minutes. You're not gonna see the growth. So the commitment we would make if we go to that model is we now are saying we're not gonna teach science, social studies, and health because we need to focus on math and reading. We know those are essential skills for the workforce and to be successful in school. So let's focus on math and reading for an hour and 45 minutes. Currently, I understand that we might lose instructional time on those 2 days because we need to get ready for the 2 days they're not with us. But we have a lot more than an hour and 45 minutes of instructional time, and we're not eliminating those other content areas that the kids love to do. I would hate to see us strip science away. I would hate to see us strip social studies away because the project-based things that we do there and the learning that they get from that is so important. They don't want to just do math and reading every day. So those would be my concerns in looking at that model, and those were some of the conversations we had when we chose to go with 2 full days because we really felt like we could keep instructional blocks intact, which our teachers appreciated because we can start really making sure those skills are emphasized. Even if the 2 days are with us, we're teaching the skills, and the 2 days are at home, they're reinforcing those skills. We're still making further gains than if we try to go with just that hour and 45. And it might be 2 hours, it might be 2.5 hours. I mean, but we're not gonna get more than 2.5 hours of instruction in that 4-hour block.
So let's say we went to the 4 days,
Okay.
okay? What is your opinion on K through 5, the whole thing, or K through 3, K through 2, opening that up for a short period of time and then going 4th and 5th grade or something like that?
So we know the grade levels where we're more concerned about class sizes.
Yeah.
We know the ones that we're not as concerned. I think no matter what we do, a slower approach is gonna be better because then we can really see what's working and what's not. So if we wanna start bringing K-5 back in full-time, 4 days a week, I personally would probably look at it grade level by grade level and give us time to transition back in. It does create other issues for us on a staffing end. And we have to remember our staff have done a lot of work in what they've done right now to get to where they are. They're only 8 days into that, 9 days into that. Any shift we make to them right now is gonna, so we need to be cognizant of that with whatever we do moving forward as well.
What's the grading?
I've said from the beginning,
What's grading
K2
in,
is important.
what's grading in K through 5?
November.
Yeah.
So November 16th would be the first day of the new trimester.
So if, let's say because we're only in at 9 days, right, as of now, in this current system. We're having board meetings every 2 weeks. If we tabled it left everything as is, where is, why is, at this point for another 2 weeks, based off what's happened at the high school, how we're gonna handle that, how it transpires from there, as well as, like you were saying, people are just now getting settled in. That's the thing that worries me, right there, is when people get settled in, it's harder to get them out.
Yeah.
At some point. I'm not saying, I agree with you 100%, is to take them out of something they've been in for 9 days and now restructure everything. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But also it's a slippery slope that how long do you let things get settled in? Then it's even a harder change for a lot of people. So I guess my question would be, in your opinion, do you think we should keep things as is for another 2 weeks and let's let things kind of settle down on both, all the way around? I mean, we have 24 hours from when the COVID cases, when we've got quarantines and everything else coming down the pipe, and see how that pans out over the next 2 weeks, as well as your guys' situation over there with the K through 5s and stuff like that. And then revisit this, because we have time on the term side, right? That was a question I was really leading to, because November 12th is the end, right?
Yeah.
So that puts us first week in October, second week in October for our next meeting. If we were comfortable enough to start to make decisions then, would we still have time to do that for the next term starting, is my question.
Because that term would not begin until November 16th.
Okay.
That would be the first day of the
Okay.
term.
Okay.
And we also have time to survey
Yes.
Yes.
this next 2 weeks, survey staff, parents.
Agreed.
Yes, please.
I think.
Well, and hiring, it gives us some opportunity maybe to throw some stuff in some other places for the special ed needs, to get those teachers hired and or up to speed if that's, if we can find the candidates, and shifts in schooling or situations. There's a lot of people with degrees out there for teaching that may find themselves interested in filling some of those spots as well. So my concern more is just logistically. I don't want, we're, like our superintendent said, we're running two separate schools, one online and one in school. So making sure that we have the ability to staff that adequately for the safety of our students, I think is pretty important to me.
May I speak to that?
Can I just add something? When I was in the schools yesterday, there was not a single teacher that I talked to that said, please wait until semester to change them, or I love doing online and in person. Every single teacher I talked to specifically said, I would prefer to have my kids in face-to-face. And I understand the give them time, but I also think you need to think about, sometimes the teachers have had all summer to be afraid and to worry and fret about what is this 2 days going to look like? I'm nervous, I'm afraid. Sometimes you just have to rip the Band-Aid off, set the date and go. And I'm not suggesting that's what we do here, but my suggestion would be, we talk about this and make a final decision at our next October board meeting, have the health district there to verify and clarify questions that we have and concerns. Every principal in elementary that I talked to said they're good to go for kindergarten. The only things, like I said, plexiglass possibly for height and some gloves is what they requested. But everyone else, their teachers included, they're good. There's a couple concerns, but it's the same as with the 2 days on. Once they started doing it, they're good. The other thing that I'm going to do personally is to tour Valley View's school and also West Ada and their classroom size, because they have the same legal counsel we do, and Valley View is also in the same health district that we are. That being said, I don't think that we could be found at fault if we're mirroring what they're doing. Granted, the mask is an issue, but I think that's something that we can still address. We also know that wearing masks does not change the quarantine, but Valley View's been doing this since August. They've had cases and they're still open. But I think for elementary kids, the term doesn't matter. They don't know when one semester ends and one doesn't. It doesn't change what the teachers are teaching. It's not a big deal as high school or even middle school. Their classes aren't changing. I think the sooner that we can get them back and get them on a consistent routine and learning, the better. I think the longer that they go, the 2 days off, 2 days on, they're getting complacent. They're getting comfortable with working for 2 days and half working the other 2 days. And I think that it's going to be harder and harder to bring them back the longer we push this out. And I'm saying that we still need to be cautious of what's going on around us, and the health numbers will change. But I don't think that we need to base our decision on the teachers just barely started using their technology, or because honestly, they would rather not. They would rather teach them face to face.
In regards to staffing, I think it would be nice if we had the time to reach out to the community again and say, even though these positions are open as full-time now, please apply even if you would be interested in coming back if we come back full-time in a green, or if we come
Yes.
back K-5, because then at least I have people to talk to. Right now I have no bodies to talk to. So it would give me time and give us time to come up with a strategy to really try to find the bodies.
Yeah. And I agree. I think we need to, I personally am okay with not making a decision today, based on events that have happened and stuff like that and where we were currently at. But I wholeheartedly agree with Alicia on that point, that we've got to make some decisions and to a certain extent, pull the Band-Aid off and move forward, providing nothing, catastrophic has happened or whatever, to make a decision on our next board meeting to move this thing forward.
We know where we want to go.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, can we safely get there? I think that's part of it too, is that we need community help.
Yes.
As a government entity, we can't do everything. We need help with substitutes. We need help with recruiting teachers. We need help with families out there that are struggling. We need help with single parents that are struggling with healthcare. We need people to reach out to their neighbors. This is still a pandemic. You can poo-poo it or whatever, but the way it's affecting our community is the school can't solve all these problems. The government can't solve all these problems. We need help with neighbors helping neighbors, with internet, with daycare, with small study groups, we're going to limp through this, but we need help from, we're not going to be able to solve it in this room.
No.
In this interim, we need help from the community to help us find people that we can employ. We're going to get through it. We're getting there. I think we're making steps. We're making processes. I just think it's progress. I think we need a survey, get a good feel
I think so.
for our staff. I know where our parents stand for the most part, but they also need to
So it'd
understand,
be good.
they also need to understand the hurdles
Yes.
that we need to get over for our staff and spacing and do that. So I know we took a step today towards events, and parents and friends being able to come watch games and band events, stuff like that. Maybe that's a little small,
Well, we've heard from
thing, but-
everybody too, and that's been helpful.
we got to research. So
Yes.
I think we get together, do some surveys before the next 2 weeks, and
Yes.
Kirk, is there any action that needs motion? What about rewriting that section with the school nurses and the admin for the elementary? Is that an actionable item, or just have them bring it to our next board meeting and they can do that by direction of the board, or what needs to happen there?
Kristen, they just,
Well, it would be an amendment to the reopening plan.
So-
So you would need to
But we don't
approve
have,
it.
I say we don't have the wording yet, so can we just direct you with no action today that we would like that revisited? And for you guys to come with that information for us at our October board meeting?
Kristen, would you like me to set up a meeting with my school nurses?
Sure.
So Alicia, I'm happy to set up a meeting with my school nurses and ask them to look over what the board adopted and provide any amendments that they would like to see based on their expertise and the recommendations from Southwest Central District Health?
So
That's applicable.
the school nurses and the 3 elementary principals, they've had some experience now. We're getting into 6th season. There's just some things, I don't want to tie their hands, but I also think there needs to be a little more direction there. So I think if that group of people could get together and revisit this, they can come up with something that will provide clarity, but also the flexibility that they need for it to work successfully.
So I think I could pull them in that October day that we have PD for staff, so that I'm not taking them out of the buildings to work on this. And we could put something together. So that would be before your next meeting.
Perfect.
And then did we need to do anything about allowing Kristen to work with the academy and set them up a little bit different? Does that take board action? Or is
Nope,
that something we can just direct?
they agree to do it and they'll bring something to us to approve.
Okay.
And I guess we'll work on a survey to get out, and I think part of that is in these reopening plans, is it a graduated K, first, second, third, or if it's a
That's
half
really
day,
right,
although
wouldn't we?
you scared the heck out of me for half days, so I'm like. And it makes
Trying to
sense.
give you the facts.
And I agree.
Makes sense. No, I like your,
No, it's okay.
that's good, and so we're not just gonna wait for 2 weeks, we're gonna be working these next 2 weeks to kind of take a step forward.
Yeah, to make some decisions. I have another question though. On that motion that I made that we passed on the students, the 4 tickets across the board, that's effective immediately?
Yep.
So do I need to amend that? Or is that, we can just say that's what it is?
The only thing that I would segue that with would be, I would say up to 4, pending on size of stadium. So for example, the middle school gymnasium, where they play volleyball and basketball, is drastically smaller than any of the gyms at the high school. So 4 individuals there, it might be difficult to.
His motion said maintaining social distancing, so I think we're covered.
I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
that's.
So I think it gives you the leeway to say, hey, the middle school gym, if we had a flock of,
Yeah, it's
Fill
full.
out crowd.
Sorry about your luck. You know, I mean,
but I think
You just tell them.
yeah, you just, I don't,
I've only
Yeah,
seen 2 of my kids.
your motion was, I thought your motion was good because it left us that gray area. of maintaining
Exactly.
Social distancing. So it
Exactly.
Gives you the flexibility you need, Andy. If there's a,
but my question was, I mean, do I have to specifically say it's immediately, starting today?
we're good,
Okay.
we're good. So,
Do we need to make a motion to table that? Or-
no, we're good, because
Okay.
this comes up automatically in 2 weeks. So then our last action item would be, if we want to entertain a motion to support or not support ISBA Resolution 15.
I'll make a motion that we support the ISBA resolution number 15 with CUNA.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait, time out.
Before you adjourn, can I just clarify, are you planning to hold another special meeting in 2 weeks prior to the regular board meeting in October? Because that would be on October 7th versus the meeting is on Monday, the 12th.
No, I don't think we should just wait till the 12th. I say we wait till the 12th on our regular board meeting.
We have to reevaluate though, don't we? On Wednesdays?
Yeah, but Wednesday to Monday,
Setting them every week.
we can
Gotcha.
set them. So
Yeah,
I mean, Wednesday and then turn around on Monday and meet again.
Yeah, I don't love meetings.
Yeah, so I'm in,
It would be.
They are not my
I-
favorite.
I would be in favor of just
Waiting to the
waiting
12th.
till the 12th
Yes,
for our meeting.
Let's make sure.
that gives more time for everyone else to.
All right.
Who seconded the resolution? I missed that.
Alicia was
Alicia,
just being
let Alicia
5
have it.
seconds,
Okay.
half a second.
You can give it to Jake, it's okay.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We need a motion first.
I motion we adjourn.
And we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Thanks, everyone.
That was
Thank
very-
you.